Can you imagine away cancer? The answer is yes. Hi, I am your host, Guy Cheyenne, and welcome back once again to Rebuild Reality, where as always, we talk about who we really are, why we're here, and how all of this stuff works. Now, today I've got a great article for you guys, and I wanted to really read it because it's an excellent demonstration of a person using their imagination, how they did it, how long it took, and how effective it was. And I think it's like I said, a perfect example, and that's why I really wanted to share it. Now, this is an article from back in 2011, and obviously that's a little bit ago, but some of you people might recognize the person in this, although probably very, very few who have heard this story. So it's a CNN article, and it begins, and it says, "By now, you likely know David Seidler, who won an Oscar on Sunday for Best Original Screenplay for The King's Speech. And he was a stutterer just like King George VI, whose battle with a speech disorder is portrayed in the film. What you might not know is that Seidler, 73 years old, suffered from cancer just like the king did. But unlike His Majesty, Seidler survived the cancer, and he says he did it because he used the same vivid imagination he employed to write his award-winning script. Seidler says he visualized his cancer away. I know it sounds awfully Southern Californian woo-woo, he admits when he describes the visual, if I can I say the word? Let's find out. The visualization techniques he used when his bladder cancer was diagnosed nearly 6 years ago. But that's what happened. Seidler says when he found out his cancer had returned, he visualized a lovely, clean, healthy bladder for 2 weeks. Sounds familiar, like what I was saying in yesterday's video. He imagined a lovely, clean, healthy bladder for 2 weeks, and the cancer disappeared. He's been cancer-free for more than 5 years now. Whether you can imagine away cancer or any other disease has been hotly debated for years. One camp of doctors will tell you that they've seen patients do it and that a whole host of studies support the mind-body connection. Remember, this is in 2011, so a lot's changed since then, you know. Other doctors, just as well respected, will tell you the notion is preposterous and there's not a single study to prove it really works. You know, I mean, who pays for studies? Well, pharmaceutical companies, because they're very expensive to do. Large studies are very, very expensive, so it wouldn't really behoove them, be in their best interest to do that, would it? Anyway, he continues. He said, when I was first diagnosed in 2005, I was rather upset, of course, Seidler says. After 3 or 4 days of producing a lot of mucus and salty tears, I knew prolonged grief was bad for the autoimmune system, and the autoimmune system was the only buddy I had in fighting cancer. Seidler said that's when he decided to sit down and write the screenplay for The King's Speech, which had been simmering in his brain for many years. I thought, if I throw myself into the creative process, I can't be sitting around, I have to do it because I can't be sitting around feeling sorry for myself, he says. Very smart. After consulting with California urologist Dr. Dino DiConcini, love that name, Dino DiConcini, just sounds cool. After consulting with him, Seidler decided not to have chemotherapy and not to have all or part of his bladder removed, which were both common treatments for bladder cancer. Instead, he opted for surgery to remove just the cancer itself, and he took supplements meant to enhance his immune system. He said, for years, whenever I walked down the stairs, I rattled like a pair of maracas. I had so many pills inside of me. Despite his best efforts, the cancer came back within months. Seidler was forced to rethink his decision not to have chemotherapy or bladder surgery. As his doctor booked an appointment for surgery 2 weeks later, Seidler commiserated with his soon-to-be ex-wife, and it was a comment from her that gave him the idea to try to visualize his cancer disappearing. She said, well, what happens if in 2 weeks they go in and there's no cancer? He remembers, I thought to myself, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This woman is in total denial. But later, reflecting upon her comments, Seidler thought, perhaps she might be onto something. Perhaps it would be possible for his cancer to just disappear while he waited for surgery. Figuring he had absolutely nothing to lose, for the next 2 weeks, he imagined a clean bladder. I spent hours visualizing a nice cream-colored, unblemished bladder lining, and then I went in for the operation. And a week later, the doctor called me, and his voice was very strange. Seidler remembers, he said, I don't know how to explain it, but there's no cancer there. He says the doctor was so confounded that he sent the tissue from the pre-surgical biopsy done before to 4 different labs, and all confirmed that it was cancerous. Seidler says the doctor couldn't explain how it happened, but Seidler could. He says he believes the supplements and visualization were behind what his doctors called spontaneous remission. And you can actually look up spontaneous remission, and you'll find all kinds of stories about that. So he believes it was what his doctor called spontaneous remission, plus a change in his way of thinking. Ta-da! He stopped feeling sorry for himself because of his cancer and his impending divorce. I was very grief-stricken, he remembers. It was a 30-year-old marriage, and in my grief, I could tell I was just getting sicker. So I decided to just change my head around. And this is what it is. We get on the other side of it instead of being on the crushing side where we're like, oh my God, It's like, no. Because there'll be a lot of people who will go in and have like something proclaimed by a doctor to them. You have XYZ. And most people will be like, oh my God, okay, they accept it. They accept it like a label. They're like, it's me. I accept that as me. But there's other people when they get that diagnosis who are like, no, like right then and there. They make up their mind. They're like, no, that's not my story. That's not going to happen to me. No way. That's not going to be me. And then it's not. And when you catch it right like that, boom, ooh, that's a really great thing. So this is what I mean when our mind is like presenting these things. Well, it's like, no. This is a new show. This is a new program. This is what we're doing now. Now. And it's just the reprogramming, like I said. So I decided to just change my head around. When Seidler says he knows his unorthodox recovery techniques sound woo-woo to some ears, they sound like science to Dr. Christine Northrup, a best-selling author who has written extensively on the mind-body connection. This doesn't sound woo-woo to me, she says. The mind has the power to heal. She says by moving himself from fear and abject terror into action, Seidler changed his body's chemistry. Fear increases cortisol and epinephrine in the body, which over time lowers your immunity, she says. High levels of the 2 stress hormones lead to cellular inflammation, which is the way cancer begins. Taking action, as Seidler eventually did, decreases the hormones. Hope is actually a biochemical reaction in the body, she says. Dr. Bernie Siegler, author of Love, Medicine, and Miracles, says it's the same way an athlete uses visualization to improve performance. When an athlete visualizes success, their body really is experiencing it in that moment. They are experiencing success. When you imagine something, your body really feels like it's happening because your body does not know the difference between you thinking about something and it actually happening, says Siegel, a retired clinical assistant professor of surgery at Yale Medical School. But Dr. Marcia Angel, former editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine, calls the mind-body connection a new religion. Remember, this is in 2011, that encourages false hope. There is something so biologically impossible that your attitude is going to cure a disease, says Angel, a senior lecturer in medical and social medicine at Harvard Medical. There's a tremendous arrogance to imagine that your mind is that powerful, then bring it on, baby, if that's the way you want to look at it. But the way you look at it, as the saying goes, things, the things you look at change when the way you change looks at them, however it goes. You know what I mean? So then for her, that would be true. For her, that would be true. But for us who know differently, then the opposite would be true. So then it goes on to say, in research done by the Yale School of Public Health and the National Institute of Aging, young people who had positive perceptions about aging were less likely to have a heart attack or stroke when they grew older. In another study by researchers at Yale and Miami University, middle-aged and elderly people lived 7 years longer if they had a positive perception about aging, of course. In 2008, Harvard researchers published a study, and I love this one. They published a study where they told a group of hotel chambermaids that their daily cleaning activities counted as exercise and were the equivalent to working out at a gym every day. A month later, those chambermaids had less weight, had all lost weight, and had lowered their blood pressure without changing a single thing. Yet the chambermaids who weren't told about the benefits of their daily work had no such changes whatsoever. Just shows it, right? So it's so damn obvious that your attitude affects survival, says Siegel, the retired Yale surgeon. There's no definitive guide to visualization, but Siegel, who's instructed his patients in imagining for many years, has a few suggestions. First, he says to draw a picture of 4 things: yourself, your health problem, your treatment, and your body eliminating your problem. These pictures might tell you what sort of imagery would work best for you. For example, when one of Siegel's patients drew her disease as 10 cancer cells next to 1 white blood cell, he suggested she visualize her body making more white blood cells. Second, he says to know yourself. One religious patient of his had been visualizing dogs attacking and eating up her cancer, which didn't work. So instead of picturing her tumor as a block of, he had her picture her tumor as a block of ice and God's light melting it away, which he says was much more effective. Third, he suggests not visualizing anything violent, since most of us aren't violent by nature. Children don't mind being violent, and they'll visualize blasting away cancer, and that's fine. He said, but most adults don't like to kill, so that's not an image they're comfortable with, he says. He remembers one patient who was a Quaker and a pacifist, and quickly rejected any notion of killing or beating cancer. Instead, he pictured white blood cells carrying cancer cells away, and he beat his cancer. I always get so because it's so powerful, isn't it? It's so amazing what we can do. It's so incredible who we are. And stories like this abound if you look for them. And I would suggest anybody do that kind of thing, only because it shows. It's just more proof. And the more proof you have, the better. Because it's no, this is true. This is true, because we know the world doesn't work the other way. It's so plain. The world does not work. Our world does not work like that. Our imagination, our hallucination that we're in doesn't work by outside in. It works by inside out. So I hope that has helped. And thank you for being with me here once again on Rebuild Reality. I am, of course, your host, Sky Cheyenne. Thank you, as always, for liking, commenting, subscribing, all the beautiful things that you do. And thank you for being such a wonderful, beautiful, incredible being that you are, because you are already right now. Which is why I look forward to seeing you here next time on Rebuild Reality.